Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our Final Fantasy Commander deck profile. We're here with Ultima, Origin of Oblivion. It's flying. Whenever he attacks, put a blight counter on target land. For as long as that land has a blight counter on it, it loses all other land types and abilities and has just tap to add colorless. Whenever you tap a land for colorless, add an additional colorless mana to your mana pool as well. So there's a couple different ways you could run this deck. You could either tap all of your opponent's lands for colorless. This way they can't use them for their spells, essentially, unless they're running a colorless deck as well. Or you could run a whole bunch of Eldrazi in order to get in your opponent's way. You could also do both, which is what we tried to do here with this deck, because Eldrazi are fun, but we don't necessarily want to have an Annihilator. We want to, be even more annoying by having mostly stacks pieces in this deck. But yeah, we have a whole bunch of Eldrazi in this deck in order the ones that'll take control of our opponent's turns, ones that'll destroy our opponent's stuff. We have other colorless spells that'll help us do a whole bunch of that as well. But yeah, we try to keep it under 1,000 just because, it's still an Eldrazi deck, so it's going to be expensive. But we may do a budget version of this deck, can't guarantee it just because most of the spells in this deck are, expensive. But yeah, let's get into it card by card. We have the Chroma's Memorial. Creatures control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection. This way we can make sure we could swing in for that damage. It is 7 mana, but, once you have a big enough creature, you could win the game with that. Basalt Monolith doesn't untap during your untap step, but you do get that 3 mana right off the bat, allowing you to turbo boost your game plan just a little bit. Commander's Plate, +3/+3, has protection from each other color that's not its other identity, and equipped 3, so, have this come out for 5, have this come out for 4, and we'll be able to, swing in with a little bit of 3 hits for commander damage with that, along with stopping our opponents from using their lands if we need to get to that point. Overflowing Chalice, tap for some mana. We're going to need some mana to get all of our, 12, 13, 8 cost mana spells, 9, 10, 10, all the fun stuff in this deck. But yeah, like I said, we're going to need plenty of mana, and this will allow us to tap our waste for additional colorless, so, we'll potentially start off with a lot of mana on this. Expedition Map, sacrifice it, get a land. We're going to need lands. Forsaken Monument, colors creatures control have +2/+2, making this into a 6/6. Commander's Plate makes it into a 9/9. And then whenever you tap a permanent for colors, you add an additional colorless. So we're at 3 colorless for all of our lands if we have Ultimate and this on the board at the same time. And whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. A little bit of life gain's nice as well. Godpharaoh Statue, spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses a life. Yeah, it's mostly the stacks piece that we're looking for on this. Let's be annoying if we're going to be annoying, right? Hedron Archive, a little bit of extra mana to cast our stuff. Lightning Grease, make sure Ultima can attack the turn it comes out. We don't necessarily want to wait to put those counters onto our stuff, so let's do it right away. Mana Vault, additional ways to get some additional mana. Mind Stone for additional mana as well. Mind's Eye, where were we? Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card as well. We need draw power to get stuff into our hand, because we can't just rely on having drawing a 9 mana spell every turn, right? Soul Ring, additional mana. Swiftfoot Boots, make sure we can attack the turn it comes out. Sword of Fortune Frontier, whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, exile a top card of your library. You may play that card this turn, play an additional land this turn. We're going to need ways to get additional lands onto the battlefield, so we'll take what we can get. The One Ring, the additional draw power is nice, a little bit of protection for ourselves for a turn as well. Dot Vessel for that colorless mana, no hand size maximum either. So, like I said, we have expensive spells, so we're just going to need the mana for this Andran Dynamo as well. Unstable Obelisk also gets a sad colorless mana, and also you can sacrifice to destroy target permanent if you have 7 mana at a certain point. I mean, that's not going to happen much, but it could happen. Burnished Heart, get our waste out of our deck and onto the battlefield. Cityscape Leveler, whenever you cast a spell or whenever Cityscape Leveler attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a tapped Power Stone token. So that's just a really good way to get rid of our opponent's stuff. And sometimes they'll have a way to use Power Stone token. Emrakul, Promise End, 1 less for each card type among cards in our graveyard, so we'll have artifacts, enchantments, instants, lands, planeswalkers, sorcerers, all the above. making it a little bit cheaper to cast, but, you know, we're probably not going to get to the point where we could actually cast it. But if we do, it is really fun to take control of target player's turn for just a little bit. You know, like I said, if we're already running an annoying commander, we may as well be annoying. Emrakul, World New, in control of all of our opponent's creatures while we're at it. We don't necessarily need to take just their turn. Glaring Fleshraker, we're going to need some ways to get additional mana. Whenever you cast a color spell, get that additional mana basically, and you get to burn our opponents just for a little bit. Kozilek, Great Distortion, discard a card with mana value X, counter target spell with mana value X. I mean, if our opponent has a 6 mana spell, and we have this in our hand, we're in a good position for that. Like I said, we're going to be annoying, be annoying. Oblivion Sower, when you cast a spell, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of their library. Then you may play any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield under your control. We'd use basically any type of mana for certain spells, so may as well take their lands. Palladium Mirror, get that colorless mana. Roaming Drone, you know, we don't necessarily need to wait until we have the lands that we want. We could have double lands and then double those lands with this as well. So we basically get those 2 attack abilities off in order to make sure we get that onto multiple lands. Scrawling Crawler, additional draw power is nice, along with making it so that we get in our opponent's way, making them not want to draw as much. Solemn Simulacrum, getting those additional lands is always helpful. A little bit of draw power never hurts as well. Let's scroll on down. Spawnbed Protector, after you give your end step, return up to 1 target Eldrazi creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Create 2 tokens, they'll tap for the mana. So, you know, make it so that your problems don't just go away once you're done with the problems. We're not running like some of the Eldrazi's in here just because I don't necessarily like Annihilator, just because I've lost to it too many times and I hate it at this point. I mean, that's the whole reason. Summon Bahamut, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Good removal. Draw 2 cards. We like removal. And then this creature deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents you control to each opponent. I'm just saying, if we have him as 9, this is 7, that's 16 damage to each opponent. I mean, by turn 9, that's a game ender. Well, I mean, this would be turn 13 at this point. Someone should be losing at that point. Whenever you cast a spell, exile 2 target permanents. Not necessarily. Exile 2 target permanents. It does have to happen, so it may have to be our stuff, unfortunately. Whenever you attack, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of their library. Well, while we're not necessarily running Annihilator, we are running some mill. Ultima the Defiler, cast a spell, target opponent exiles half their deck, rounded up. Like I said, we're not running Annihilator, we're running mill. People love mill, right? Enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. Yeah, if our opponent's also running Eldrazi, this could be a 17/17. Annihilator X, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it, and then, you know, Annihilator 10 while we're at it. People love it. Void Winnower, opponent can cast spells with even CMCs, which can be a lot of cards, especially if they run a lot of 2 CMCs in their deck. Your opponent can't block with creatures with even CMC as well. You know, get in their way a whole bunch. That's really what the focus of that card is. And then Warden of Geometrics. It's really just that mana that we want off that card. Echoes of Eternity. If an ability of a color spell happens, it happens an additional time. So, have it quadruple, essentially. I don't know, wait, was it quadruple? It happened an additional time. So yeah, no. We just have 3 times. It's not 4 times if we have both of those on the battlefield. Or would it? No, I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. I had to look up how that works, actually. But either way, just getting that 3rd land with the additional mana on it is always helpful there. Drowsy Conscription. We're in a little bit of Annihilator. Not a lot, though. It's really just trample and making so we can swing in for commander damage for 2 hits instead of 3. Ugin's Mastery. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, manifest the top card of your library. Making so we have our secret Bahamut already on the battlefield. Whenever you attack creatures with total power 6 or greater, you may turn a face-down creature face up. That's going to be really helpful in a sec. Let's just say that much. Because, like, we basically get to cheat out of 10-10 by having just, like, Ultima and this on the battlefield. Well, Ultima and another creature, like even Burnished Heart. Let's scroll on over to the second half of the deck, as always. Yep, that's the end of the deck. We have Desecrate Reality. For each opponent, exile one target permanent that player controls. Just some good removal. But it has to have even CMC, so we can't remove everything. If at least 3 colors mana was spent to cast this, which in the colors deck it's going to be. Return a permanent with an odd CMC from your graveyard to the battlefield. You know, say if we we're at a certain point where we're not getting lands in our hand, we could discard Bahamut, get them back when we eventually have this on the battlefield. Eldritch Immunity. Target creature you control gains protection from each color until end of turn. You know, just a way to swing in a little bit easier. A little bit of protection as well, because, you know, target removal is a real thing. Kozilek's Command. Get some additional mana. Scry until we get to the point we get the card we want. Or exile target creature with mana value extra less. Just some good removal there. Not of this world. Counter target spell. You know, and we're going to have a CMC 7 or more spell in our hands at some point. So it's going to be basically a free counter spell. Null, Elemental Blast, removal, or counter, depending on what we need at the time. Warping Whale, exile target creature with powers or toughness 1 or less. You know, not really going to happen that much. But you can counter target sorcery spell, which will be more useful. Or get that additional mana, depending on what we need. As always, we go into lands last. We have 44 in this deck. Just because I feel like with this deck, you need a lot of lands just to get what you need onto the battlefield. 44 may be a bit much, but is it? Is it really? Also, you could just run some additional Eldrazi in here in order to take out some of the lands. And also, I want to try to keep the deck under $100. So this is the easiest way to do that. We have Karn, Living Legacy. Get that Power Stone token. Put additional mana onto the battlefield. And we have some Ugins in order to banish stuff. Get that additional mana while we're at it in order to cast stuff for cheaper. And then deals that damage while we're at it. All's Dust for a board wipe. Calamity of the Titans for the initial cost to cast a spell. Reveal colors creature spell from your hand. Exile each creature planeswalker with mana value less than the revealed card. So, you know, control what we got on the board. Search your area for a basic land reveal, put into your hand. We're going to need to get our ways onto the battlefield somehow. Selective Obliteration. Choose a color. Remove everything else. Wandering. Your opponents could also work together in order to make sure nothing's removed. But where's the fun in that? And then whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 2. If you do, copy that. Like I said, we want to get in their way just a little bit. But that's the deck there. As always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe your thoughts on the deck or how you'd run this deck here yourself. Like I said, it's not necessarily the most powerful one, but it is definitely still fun to run this one. But I hope you have a good rest of the day, and thanks for watching.